USS Massachusetts, BB-59. Battleship Massachusetts was built in Quincy, Massachusetts, at the Four River shipyards of the Bethlehem Steel Corporation. The ship was launched on September 23, 1941, and holds the record as the heaviest ship ever launched in Quincy. Big Mammy, as her crew knew her, was delivered to the Boston Navy Yard in April of 1942 and commissioned the following month. Following her shakedown period, Battleship Massachusetts went into action on November 8, 1942 as part of Operation Torch, the invasion of North Africa. While cruising off the city of Casablanca, Morocco, the battleship engaged in a gun duel with the unfinished French battleship Jean Bart. Moored at a Casablanca pier, in this battle, Massachusetts fired the first American 16-inch projectile in anger of World War II. 5 hits from Big Mammy silenced the enemy battleship, and other 16-inch shells from Battleship Massachusetts helped sink 2 destroyers, 2 merchant ships, a floating dry dock, and heavily damaged buildings and docks in Casablanca. The ship returned to Boston for refitting and resupplying, and in February of 1943 went through the Panama Canal to join the action in the Pacific Fleet, where she would remain for the remainder of her 3.5 years of active service. Assigned to the Pacific Southwest Fleet, the battleship saw action in the New Guinea Solomons area and participated in the invasion of the Gilbert Islands in November of 1943. The invasion of the Marshall Islands in January of 1944, the powerful carrier strikes against Truk in February of 1944, and a series of raids against Japanese bases in the Western Pacific and Asia. Following a bombardment of Ponape Island in May of 1944, Battleship Massachusetts returned to Bremerton, Washington, for modernization as well as deserved rest for her crew. In September of 1944, the ship returned to action in the invasion of Palau Islands and acted as an escort for the 1st Carrier Task Forces, using her 5-inch, 40mm and 20mm guns to defend the carriers against enemy aircraft. Big Mammy's 16-inch guns pounded Iwo Jima and Okinawa before those islands were invaded in 1945, and by July of that year, she was off Japan with the 3rd Fleet. The battleship bombarded the Imperial Island and steelworks at Kamishi, then sailed south to bombard a factory Hamamatsu. Returning to Kamamishi, Battleship Massachusetts fired the last 16-inch projectile of the war. With peace achieved, Big Mammy returned to the United States and operated with the Pacific Fleet until mid-1946, when she was ordered deactivated. The battleship remained in the Reserve Fleet in Norfolk, Virginia, until she was stricken in 1962 from the Navy Register and ordered sold for scrap. However, her wartime crew had held in annual reunions since 1945 and lobbied to save her and use it as a memorial. With the assistance of Massachusetts schoolchildren, they raised enough money to bring Big Mammy to Fall River. In June of 1965, she was open to the public. 2 months later, now the centerpiece of Fall River's revitalized waterfront and one of the 5 National Historic Landmark ships at Battleship Cove, Big Mammy, with her guns trained fore and aft in a posture of peace, stands ready to welcome visitors from around the nation and across the world, as she has for more than a quarter of a century. A member of the South Dakota class, Massachusetts is 680 feet long overall, a beam of 108 feet, 2 inches, and a draft of 35 feet, 1 inch. She displaces 37,970 long tons as designed and up to 44,519 long tons at full combat load. The ship was powered by 4 General Electric steam turbines, each driving 1 propeller shaft using steam provided by 8 oil-fired Babcock and Wilcox boilers. Rated at 130,000 shaft horsepower The turbines were intended to give a top speed of 27.5 knots. The ship had a cruising range of 15,000 nautical miles, and at a speed of 15 knots, Big Mammy carried 3 Vought OS-2U Kingfisher floatplanes for aerial reconnaissance, which were launched by a pair of aircraft catapults on her fantail. Her peacetime crew numbered 1,793 officers and enlisted men, but during the war, the crew swelled to 2,500 officers and enlisted men. The ship was armed with a main battery of 9 16-inch 45 caliber Mark VI guns and 3 triple-gun turrets on the center line, 2 of which were placed in a super-firing pair forward, with the third aft. Secondary battery consisted of 25-inch 38 caliber dual-purpose guns mounted in twin turrets clustered amidship. 5 turrets on either side. Massachusetts was equipped with an anti-aircraft battery that included quadruple 40mm Bofors guns and 20mm or Lycan autocannon instead of the 50 caliber guns. The main armament belt was 12.2 inches thick, while the main armored deck was up to 6 inches thick. The main battery gun turrets had 18-inch thick fades, and they were mounted atop barbets that were 17.3 inches thick. The conning tower had 16-inch thick sides.